Today, we are speaking with Dr. LeTa Jussila, Doctor of Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. When LeTa's sister was given a diagnosis of 3 to 6 months to live, this was years ago, LeTa jumped in. She applied all of her health knowledge and the ancient wisdom that she has learned to help her sister overcome her illness, and she is still alive today. LeTa decided to dedicate her life to educate, empower, and inspire people around their health. She hosts a variety of services, modules, products, and programs that are all rooted in ancient Chinese medicine and the belief that each individual is an integrative, holistic being. She has an in-person practice in Santa Cruz, and she has an online practice with drleta.com, and she works with each client to create that perfect program to lead to their overall health and happiness. I am really excited to learn more. Dr. LeTa, thank you for joining us on Fresh Blood. Please, could you tell us a little bit more about your story and getting to where you are today?
Here's the big question. How do you create your most authentic, successful, and fulfilling life? The Fresh Blood podcast studies the stories of people over the age of 40 who are thriving in life, finding those core golden threads that connect the underlying successes, those universal truths. I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. Listen and learn from the stories of others to help you soar and live the life that you were meant to thrive in.
So glad to be here, Jolie. Thank you so much for, wanting to have this conversation. I think that life happens and transformations happen when we have conversations. So
Agree.
thank you. um, so yes, that was a pivotal moment in my life, right? I mean, we can all look back at those remarkable moments that change your trajectory of where we put our attention, what lays on our hearts at night. And I just couldn't get my head around, honestly, Jolie, that how can we give someone such a finite sentence on numbers on a piece of paper? Like, I mean, yes, I understand that MRI imaging and CAT scans and blood work. I mean, yes, it's amazing to know our numbers and value the technology we have, but there's so much more to each of us than just our blood work and all those other
Agree.
things.
Yes.
Yeah. So I realized that I thought it was reckless, even though these esteemed doctors in Boston, obviously knew what they were doing, but to give someone such a finite diagnosis, I thought it was reckless. And so
Mhm.
I realized I need to learn about how to really help people because, I didn't know much back then. I mean, nearly as much as I know now. And so I understand that there's energy
Mhm.
medicine, right? There's
Mhm.
herbal medicine from the plants. Mother Earth has what we need. We just might not know what it is and where it is. There is these concepts of our environment informs us. Okay. So, I was telling a patient yesterday, when you drive down your hometown, you know, automatically you don't look a certain way or you do look a certain way. You've driven that road 100 times. And then also there's always a building that has a lot of turnover for business. Okay.
Mhm.
And I try to remind people that there are different places on the planet and different places in your home that have different energies.
Mhm.
And in Chinese medicine, we call this feng shui. And, my sister, her bed was over a river. I mean, the water
What
was
does that
pretty far.
mean in feng shui?
Well, it just means that just think about it. If a river is flowing, moving energy, how can you really rest?
Mm.
Okay. So I don't do a lot of medical feng shui, although, you can move your bed and change your cardiovascular health. But I will say that each of us, I'm reminding everybody that your environment informs you. Okay. You're in relationship to your environment. And so I realized that, if I want to be a doctor, and I thought I was going to be a Western doctor, honestly, after that whole experience with my sister, I mean, mainly a lot of people listen to MDs.
Yes.
And when I
Yeah, they do.
started, yeah, and so because they have the clout and they have, they're part of our, health insurance system. And so, but when I started interviewing them, they really said, if you want to really help people, we're getting so much pressure from the pharmaceutical companies and the health insurance companies. They said, go into either osteopathy, naturopathy, chiropractic or Chinese medicine. And I looked into those four and I realized for me, Chinese medicine resonated because of there's a very holistic integrative aspect to it. We have the energy medicine with Qigong, we have the herbal medicine and the hands-on modalities, of course, like acupuncture. We have the whole food as medicine is very, very profound. So, and then of course all the others. So I realized that I needed to dedicate my life to understanding this lens and this paradigm in a way that I could help people. And it has been such a gift. I mean, humbly, to learn about Taoism, to learn about Chinese medicine. All it's saying to all of us is we want you to be in harmony with your environment, with the seasons, but also the season that you're in. And
Right.
I think that's
Right.
important because
Mhm.
you could be in the season of losing a pet. You could be in the
Mhm.
season of starting a new job. Like what's that season, right? And so when you look at a person and how they're existing or hopefully living and thriving from a multi-prong approach, and of course from a marketing standpoint it's like integrative and holistic is kind of just means almost nothing at this point, but it really does mean something to Chinese medicine, and I just feel grateful that I can help people from this approach.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. And what's interesting is that you said you were talking to doctors, and they were telling you that these are the areas that you really need to go into if you want to help people, because of how our medical system is. I would imagine. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
interesting. And what's also interesting is how much of this aspect our medical system doesn't take into account. And I know from you, because I Dr. Lita is someone that I ran into years ago through a program that she was running for health and fitness. It was a challenge, and I love challenges. And I was like, "What's this challenge?" and and because I went to this challenge, I learned. I actually went to her for Chinese medicine, which was not something that I knew anything about. And so it was fascinating to learn these different things that I had not been taught and that greatly impacted my life. So, I mean, and
Yeah,
since
and I don't
then,
want to throw. I definitely don't want to throw Western medicine under the bus, but I think it's just important for a reframe, if I may, that
yes,
they are so amazing at emergency medicine. Like if you need medication and you need surgery and the diagnostics available, it's like thank God.
yes,
But I would love for that lens or that paradigm or that institution to really just own what they do well and what they actually do. And if they don't know an answer of how to treat high blood pressure, with food or herbs, why not wait 12 weeks to do diet and lifestyle before prescribing a medication? Like
yes,
give these patients, these Americans who are looking for solutions, right? That's my hope, honestly.
yeah,
And it's unfortunate that now you have a society, and I live in the United States, so I'll speak about the United States and the healthcare. You have a society where all of these naturopaths and chiropractors and holistic healers, me recognized as a primary care physician in California, but we all have to run our own businesses. We
mhm,
all have to, figure out how to get patients. And, it's like we're
which is not
taking it,
easy.
taking people away from the medicine, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a real problem.
So tell me about your own journey with this. So you got this advice, and then from there you went and did your own education in Eastern medicine, I imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, gratefully, the last, gosh, I don't know how many years it's been since I think 89, maybe was when they first produced the first licensed acupuncturist in California. I don't remember, but I do know that it was in the 70s, the first woman was producing acupuncture and treating patients and got arrested. But
Seriously.
yeah, yeah. But then it became like it took years for them to formulate a coalition and then policies and standardized tests. And by the time I went to school, it was all formalized. And so I
Yeah.
went, my master's program was 5 years and my doctorate was 3 years. It's not mandatory, but I did want to go to the motherland. So I went and
Mhm.
studied and worked in the hospitals in China to
Wonderful. What
really
was that
understand
like for you?
where it came from. Um, it was interesting. And I say that word loosely in the sense of we're at a time now, and this was in 2005 that I worked in China, that they are as a people they're excited about modern advancements. So like medication, or so they're kind of flipped. Now in the United States, Westerners, modern people, we're like, ooh, qigong and tai chi, and like, so it's a very interesting duality. But I will say that it was really interesting because in China, you study like women's health, like gynecology, that's it, and then just acupuncture or just herbal medicine. So you become such an expert. You see hundreds of thousands of patients, okay? So for mental health, for instance, like, neurology or whatnot, they would just do acupuncture, or they would just do tuina, that kind of thing. I mean, maybe not tuina per se, but in this country, the way that most, Westerners experience Chinese medicine, well, first of all, everybody's so busy. So it's like a spa treatment. It's like, there's music and an eye pillow and like a heat lamp, but that's not necessarily,
You
how it's
don't
practiced.
need it.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's a little bit different. And we are trained in all of the branches in all the fields.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's a little bit different. Now, having said that, it's the year 2023. And so when you get your doctorate, you can specialize. So a lot of people will specialize like in pediatrics or oncology, or, and then even specialize even more into a disease state. So like
Mhm.
Parkinson's or Hep C. So I try to tell people, I say, do you want to see a doctor who has seen, 10,000 or 100,000 patients that have had Hep C? Yes. So there's this interesting conversation in my field around, should we be treating everybody, and should we be specializing? Should we be like more like Western doctors? And so there's a lot of interesting conversations in the field right now. But I will say that the bottom line is that you're uniquely you. And unfortunately, many people are trying on diets and food plans and trying supplements because it worked for someone else, or they're looking at an ad. And I want to remind people, Jolie, and I hope that I did this when you and I worked together, that we are such sacred beings, this vessel. And it's like we often are just at war with it. We abuse it. We eat certain foods. We overdrink. We overdo cannabis. Whatever it is, we overwork, and we think that this body is going to keep on giving, and we don't have a relationship with it, and
That's so
so
true.
I just think like, wow, it's so reckless to try on a fad or try on something when you don't know. And so I'm of the proponent of personalized medicine, hands down, because let me ask you, do you have siblings?
Yes.
Okay. Even though you are genetically related, you probably sleep different, you probably digest your food differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Different
So it's
bodies.
way
Mhm.
more than genetics,
Yeah. Yeah.
way more than that. It's a piece of the puzzle.
And
So,
isn't yeah, and that's a wonderful thing too, to know that it is more than genetics, that we have power and we
yes,
have the ability to make changes in our own lives that will impact us in either positive or negative ways, depending on which direction we go.
that's right.
so so I'm curious, I mean, with your time in China, because that's a very unique experience, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience that has benefited your life or that might benefit other people's lives by what you learned?
I think the most important takeaway is that we create a personality, which is like our character, as a strategy. But that personality eventually becomes a pathology. So for instance, you want to be perfect, right? So the type A, right? But with that, tightly wound, we know it's a lot of them get colon cancer, right? The jokes are, oh, you're so anal. You're.
Wow, I never put that together. Sorry.
So
That just
so at this day and age, I try to help people understand the patterns, the habituations, the underlying operating system from which they live their life from, because then it'll give us insight on, okay, you're presenting with tinnitus and low back pain and you're fatigued and all these things, but they're related to one thing. And so if we don't understand that you have to continuously upgrade your software to upgrade your hardware, no one's using a Palm Pilot Trio. So why are you
yeah,
thinking the same way? Why are
right.
you doing the same things, eating the same things, wearing the same things, driving to work the same way? Like if you want to institute change where your life is different, it appears different on the outside, you absolutely have to start within. You
Yes.
can't keep buying stuff or doing courses or finding healers, something outside of you. I mean, there's always a time and place for all that, but I'm trying to make a point.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
would say that when I was in China, and again, this was the medicine for me, is to understand that, you know, keep the beautiful spirit part of yourself. Cause I love my own spirit. Like I'm alive. I love life. Like I'm really glad to be here and grateful to be here. But the big and this is where honesty and courage and a lot more self love comes in. It's like, okay, I love you and you can't stay that way.
Mm,
Yeah.
right. Wow, that's powerful. It's you know, it sounds like you're talking a lot about the like the 80-20 rule that we go around and most of us are doing, you know, 80% all of these things on the outside and 20% on the inside, when what we really need to be doing is 80% on the inside
Yeah.
and 20% on the outside.
That's right.
And we're not being taught that, and it's not being discussed a lot either, and we're really not being taught it. We're not. I mean, it's not something that is people know how to do. Like when we say something like this, I'm sure a lot of people are like, "Oh, okay, what does that mean?"
Yeah.
How would you? I mean, how would you advise someone to do that for themselves?
Well, I would first remind them that when we were born, I believe that we were super connected and intuitive. So some of us have clairaudient, like people can hear things, clairvoyant, see things. We all have very different skill sets. And back in the olden days, if you could see or hear things, you were put in a mental institution.
Right.
But
Yeah.
luckily today there's schools and there's people to help facilitate to understand that power and those skill sets so you're not afraid of it. And I want to say that as a woman, it's like intuition is my greatest superpower. Like we often will tune out, and everything we do is to tune out instead of tune in. Like watching Netflix, having a glass of wine, right? Like all of these things are like, oh, I deserve this because I worked hard all day. There's a mental construct that's been accepted or even designed in society, okay, to have us not be critical thinkers, okay, to ask
Mhm.
questions, right? It's like when we went from memorize, back, I think we in the 50s, we adopted the Russian approach to schooling, which is regurgitation of information, all those standardized circles, yes or no, And so I feel like over time, we have gotten a lot complacent, you know? And so I always say to people, when you hit the pillow at the end of the day, and you're just with you, it doesn't matter if you're sleeping next to someone for 50 years. It's just a moment where you can be with you. And I hope that more people take time during the day to do this. But at the end of the day, it's like, did you live? Were you kind?
Yes.
Were you using your, natural resources that you were given to give to others?
Yes.
And if not, it's like you got to start a relationship with yourself. Like, do you talk to yourself? Do you write yourself letters? Do you get to those soul to soul conversations? Or are you so afraid of ourselves, really,
Yeah.
that we do everything to tune out and check out? We become workaholics, all the different places that we have addictions.
Yes.
And I am asking, what are we all so afraid of? Are we really that afraid of ourselves? Because I believe that our souls are free and they are beautiful and that
They
we're meant
are.
to give love and receive love and share our lives, the ups and the downs. And I'm just so curious on why, as a society, we have gotten so off track. And I mean, you know the numbers, the obesity and the cardiovascular disease and the respiratory, it's like we don't have to go through the numbers, but like, what are we doing here?
Really, what are we doing? It is sick. It's really sad. And all of the things that you just said are just, again, like, it's going back. Like those are the things that we need to be taught. Like, and they need to be talking about that in school, about
Yes.
how to speak to yourself. Are you speaking to yourself? How are you speaking to yourself? How is that voice? What does that voice say? And giving advice and instruction on how to speak to yourself the correct way, how to use your mindset in the right way, how to up level yourself in all of these different ways, using all of these different techniques that are available to us, but no one teaches us, and so we feed ourselves with the media and the TV, and we get to where we are.
Well, one of the short hacks is that most of us drink water out of a water filter, because I think most of us at this time kind of realize it. I mean, there are exceptions, and if you live near a well and whatnot. A lot of us, since are realizing that we need air filters, right? So a lot of homes have air filters, and people that have allergies or pets, but also I know that we both happen to live in Santa Cruz County, and we had fires, and so we had to keep our windows shut, and so we also have to filter out everything else. No one's going to do it for you, right? So so just keeping that mindset of like, we wear shoes to filter out the hardness from our feet,
Hmm.
from the earth. You don't want to step on a nail. We're sheltering, we're filtering, the cold because of our clothes. But if you don't do that for the incoming information, then literally that's informing your body.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was telling a patient earlier today that the stomach takes in everything. It takes in food and drink, but it takes in your experiences, the information from the internet, Netflix. And you think that how can you have a Thanksgiving dinner at breakfast? No, you can't process it. You can't digest it. Same with people and experiences and information. And I think that people are taking in way too much internet, way
Most
too much
definitely.
media, and we can't process it. The system gets so overloaded that we get almost paralyzed. We get sluggish. So that's one thing. That's a hack that I would say that, moderate the incoming.
Yeah.
When you get an invitation by email or text, it's like, first and foremost, you got to limit the incoming. You got to have quiet time and just be, because many times we think we're resting, but we're scrolling TikTok.
Right.
We think
Right.
we're resting, but we're looking on the internet or watching TV. That's not
Yeah.
resting.
Yeah.
Being zero, being to still point, means no incoming. And so I am often having, at this day and age, to remind people how important it is. You go back to the theory of yin and yang, on or off, up, above and below. Like, it's
Hmm.
not complicated. So just ask yourself, are you being too yang, too much activity, or are you being too much yin, right? Are you being too masculine in your business? Or are you being too feminine?
Mm.
Like, so you don't have to complicate things. Are you blocking energy, money, love from coming in? Or are you leaking energy or money or love? So we can simplify things, and I always say to people, because I have patients that are like, oh, I want to work with you and whatnot, and I'm saving money or I can't afford it, and that goes back to our initial conversation that we have to be in private practice. But I will say that, start with what you know. People they don't even start with understanding, yes, I need to walk every day, yes, I need to drink water. Like, people aren't even practicing what they know, and
Right.
they want to pay someone to remind them of this fundamental principle. So anyone that's listening, I would say it's always a good idea to invest in a mentor or a coach or a doctor, like, hands down. That's
Yeah.
Jolie, right?
I agree.
So when you invest in someone, it really does change things, and I really believe in that, and so I'm a proponent of that. But when you can't, or you're not able to yet, I will say there are so many resources like this, because people aren't paying to listen to a podcast, right? Who are you drawn to surround yourself with? Like, people that listen to your podcast, that's one element of who they're surrounding. What information are they allowing to get in, because they know it's going to better their life, the conversations that you are facilitating. And I would encourage people to start there. Weed out the people, the experiences, the things they're eating, listening to, drinking, that are not medicinal or neutral. And if it doesn't make you feel good, it's got to be a no.
Yes. Yes.
And I will say that I try to teach people, no, not right now. So, like, if it's about a cookie or a wine, or just, okay, maybe that's too dramatic. Just say, no, not
No,
right
I
now.
like this. No, not right now. I like that a lot. There's a lot of power in that moment for you. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. You,
Absolutely.
I would imagine, with just all of the things that you've learned through your studies, and then, just being a practitioner of this area, and I know that you do a lot of research in general of new things that are come out and old things, what have you. I'm curious, what are a handful one, two, three things that you think everyone should know, that you know because of your specific profession and because of your
Mm.
specific knowledge, but you wish everyone knew it?
A great day starts the night before.
Ooh, right. I
So
mean,
people's sleep routines are out of whack right now. Okay. And again, we could go down the rabbit hole of having a window cracked, cooling off before you go to bed, understanding, the stimulus, right? So blue light, which is very talked about now. Um, you know, the sleep routine is huge, and preparing yourself for the next day could be writing things down, emptying your head, scanning your body, getting quiet. I mean, again, there's a lot of different ways, but sleep regimen and getting deep sleep is critical. And I will say that there's a system in the brain that only is operating and functioning when you're sleeping, and it's the lymphatic system. It sounds like lymphatic, but it's not. But it gets rid of all the toxins and metabolites in the brain. So when
oh
you have
yes,
sleep, yeah, when you have sleep problems, right? So that's the first thing is sleep routine. The second one I would say is really deciding who you are, who your character is. If like literally, like, do you want to be known as what? What are the 5 words that people are saying about you? Right. And if it's not what you like,
you
right?
can
You're not a
change it.
victim. Yeah, like
Hmm.
people claim victim all the time. Then someone has to be the villain and someone has to be the hero. It's not a good triune. So I say decide who you are. Then you know what to put your attention on during the day, during your waking time, right? Because otherwise you're out of alignment. So I think that people don't know who they are now. They might have known themselves before the pandemic or even 6 months ago, but I invite you to really think about and possibly decide who you are. What are those traits? What are those character traits?
I'm
And
gonna
the
do
other
those
thing is
traits.
simple things like finding physical movement you love. Don't go to the gym if you don't like to go to the gym. You never
Thank you.
remind a surfer to go
Yeah,
surfing.
exactly.
You don't
Yeah,
remind a mountain biker to go mountain biking.
yes,
And if you haven't found a way to be in your body and have physical movement that lights you up, stay the course, you'll find it. But you got to try new things, you
yes,
know?
yeah.
And I would also say that food in my mind is absolutely medicinal. It connects you, connects you to your lineage, it connects you to Mother Earth. And I think that when we don't stay connected to the food we're eating, we feel disconnected from all things. And that's when addictions come in.
How would you suggest people connecting with the food they're eating? Because this is a big thing, and especially there's, in our society, I wouldn't say the majority probably are not connecting with the food that they're eating.
Yeah,
What tips would you give people to start this process?
it's a great question. I mean, the first and foremost thing is to sit down and be present while you're eating, not being on your phone, not being in front of a TV, not even reading. And that's not easy to do.
Mm-mm, no, I don't know that I've done that. Not reading
Yeah,
by
like
myself.
being, eating
Just
the food, just eating the
yeah,
food.
yeah.
When you chew your food, saliva, like part of your DNA, gets combined in the food. And I don't want to go into the whole brain gut microbiome, but I will say that the more you can be present and chew your food and have and this meal that you're going to eat is an act of love. Okay? It's an act of love. If you prepare it, I hope that you do. It's an act of love. Okay? So they did studies on dogs and they know 15 minutes prior to when you come home. Okay? And there's all these studies with elephants and we don't have to get into that, but I will
Wait,
say
this is really
that
interesting. So you're saying that dogs know 15 minutes before you arrive that you're coming home. Like
yes.
there's a sense. I've been saying that. I really believe that. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is there's all these studies. I mean, people like studies, so that's great. But there's something about how powerful a thought is, right? They are so in tune. We're not because we've done everything to tune out. So when you're present and you're receiving this food as nourishment from Mother Earth, because remember from the umbilical cord, when you were in the womb, your mother fed you and now Mother Earth feeds us. It's the same thing. So we wonder why we have so many issues, right? But I will say that sitting down, being present, that would be conscious eating is the first thing. The second thing is eat food that looked like your grandmother had.
Mhm. Well, when you said that, food's a loving, this loving gift, I thought of a number of food articles that are popular in society that if I were to look at, I probably wouldn't think of as a loving gift. So I think that's a good way to, you can look at your food and ask yourself, is this a loving
Is
gift?
this going to nourish me?
Is this
And
going to
it's
nourish
just
me?
about being aware because
Mhm.
there are so many times where you could be eating brown rice and kale and a lean piece of chicken and be fighting with your husband. Or you could be happy as a clam eating a donut. So there's you have to look at the whole picture of you. And where at the end of the day, where are your thoughts? Where is your heart? Is it in the present moment with yourself? Is it longing for something else? It's really important to understand that there's spontaneous healing that happens when you're actually in the present moment.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember in the 90s in New York City, this woman, she sat for 89 days. Her whole art exhibit in MoMA in New York City was just sitting in a chair. And the exhibit was people can come and sit and just be present with her.
I remember this, reading about
You
it
remember that,
someplace.
right?
I remember reading an article about
Yeah.
this at some point.
She
Yeah.
sat with like 1,500 or 1,800 people, and people wept, and the news covered it and this was like in the 80s. Can you imagine now? How many of us have sat present with someone just being present,
It's so
talking,
powerful.
asking questions, getting curious, authentic connection? And I'm
Totally
not
there.
trying to be woo woo here, but I'm trying to make a point that if you spend all of your time being yang, like yin and yang, activity, doing, of course you're going to be exhausted. Of course you're going to be, you don't spend any time cultivating yin. And it's about balance. And so I always say, just ask yourself, because you might be being too yin, right? You're not moving your body. Your mind is foggy, sluggish, right? You're not trying new things. That's why they have all these brain apps now, right? So it's about your own discernment of you and being courageous enough to say, I'm fully in control. I'm the one naming my experience. I'm directing this movie of my life, and I get to choose. And and this is the thing, we get to choose how we live our life.
We do get to
If
choose how
you
we live
want
our
to
life.
if you want to eat McDonald's and whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, I'm just saying like processed food like for a long like 40 years, but you get to.
Yeah.
You get to. So that in some ways that's okay. But I know deep down that there is a soul that has had pain, that maybe not have a lot of touch and love and what unconditional love, like who knows, but I know that's not the real essence and the true desire of that soul.
Yeah.
And so I always hold space for people to know that there will be a moment in time, whether this life or another life, because in Taoism and Chinese medicine, a full healing is often death, right? So the soul will only take and this particular body. And so
Mhm.
if you want to work with this vehicle, then you got to start to have a deeper relationship with it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Did you always have a relationship with your body, or did you go through something that got you there?
Oh, I have had a battleground with my body. I mean, that's yeah, no, I mean, oh, I have a body? Like, oh, I have to look down. Like, no, absolutely. I have had weight issues my whole life. My mother had weight issues, right? So I realized as a 50-year-old that I adopted that, which is okay. It's normal in some ways, but that was just my course. And it wasn't, it's taken me a long time to like say, "Hey, what does she want? How does she feel?" And I think we just need a reframe. And the best way to do reframes is to, hear yourself thinking about, saying something or judgment, and then saying, what is a better way for me to say that?
Right.
Because you know as well as I do, our cells are eavesdropping.
Yes.
Okay. And that's
Yes.
important. I will say that I had a really big reframe. And if anybody listening is adopted, this might help because I was adopted.
Mhm.
And this is an example of how powerful a reframe could be, is that it took 4 souls right? So like not just my biological parents, my adopted parents. It took four souls to figure out where I should come in on the planet and then who should raise me. And it's like I don't know if people can understand the magnitude of that, but most adopted kids feel unwanted, they feel forgotten, that and it's like, no, 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 wait a second, you're actually special, extra special, because it took four people to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so whether I make it up or not, or it's true or not, like I believe that. And so the power of reframe can free you
Uh-huh.
from these words and phrases that have molded your existence.
Oh, I completely agree. I personally think the power of a reframe is a superpower. It is 100% a superpower that anyone can learn and bring on for
Yes.
themselves. And it is one of the lessons that have brought me the greatest joy and lightness to my life. The benefit, because it is a reframe. I mean, when things go wrong, if you will, using the word wrong, which is just something that we say to
Right.
so that our brains go to the right process. But you know, when something like that happens, we can either marinate it and just be like, oh, this was so terrible, this was so awful, or we can reframe it. And all of a sudden, that reframe creates a totally different experience for ourselves where we can either learn or process it and then move forward in a much better way, in a more spirited way, in a more educated way. And when you're able to do that and move through life that way, it's like surfing through life rather than consistently drowning and having to be saved and drowning and having to be saved.
Absolutely. I love the reframe. It's such a gift. There's so much power in it. And I will say that we don't want to stifle our emotion, right? So when we're feeling something, I really want to, impress that you want the emotion to come up and out, up and out. This is the way that the body does it. But if our head says, "Oh, I shouldn't feel angry right now," you're stopping the flow of the expression of the emotion, and then it creates disease in the body. So remember, you might digest food slower. You might process experiences slower than other people. So just know that that reframe might come in a little bit later. It might not be in the moment,
Oh, right.
right? So
Right.
so there has to be this patience in this cultivation to understand that I'm a dynamic being. And from the Chinese, we say that you have energy in different meridians every 2 hours, which means you have different resources. This is why you might have a really bad morning and a great afternoon, right? So there's different energies. And so I
Mhm.
say to people, you don't want to stop feeling and be numb. No, you want to continue to be dynamic and actually feel more and go down that rabbit hole of like, hey, I'm feeling something. Tell me more about that.
Mhm.
Tell me, say more about that, LeTa.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, yeah. All right, I'm really pissed. Okay, why are you pissed? Like, and if you can start facilitating yourself and start deepening that connection and get back to that internal voice, that inner voice, and this is where the stillness, the yin comes in because you can't do this when you're doing activity. You will start to see your experience change in life and your external appearances of everything, your relationships change. It's really beautiful, but you have to take the time. Anything worth having and being and doing, you have to put the time in. You're
Yeah.
not instantly an amazing martial artist.
No, and I've seen you're absolutely right, and I've seen this happen time and time again with people, and it's true. It's taking the time to do these things, and that is the catalyst to make that magic happen.
Absolutely.
100%. You've learned a lot through your years of all of just being in this industry, right? I'm curious because knowing what you know, were you ever given advice back in the day that you almost had to relearn, like just advice that even advice that we might all kind of get, and you wish people would stop giving? Is there anything like that you've had to relearn to make your life better?
Absolutely. The one thing that's coming to me, Jolie, is that you can't change people.
Oh, right. God,
You
that's a hard
can't.
one to learn too.
It's a tough one. You can't really do anything for anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, we can give them food, we can often give them money or shelter, but ultimately, they have their own fate and destiny. They have to be a willing participant. I mean, there's always going to be times where we need things from people. That's the concept of being in each other's life and community and family. But ultimately, when you see someone hitting their head against the wall over and over again because they're doing the same things, they're thinking the same things, you know, you can't really do much. But
Mm,
what you can do is what we do for like toddlers. It's like the edge of the coffee table. Oh, watch out for that. And oh, watch out for that. And, but the best thing we can do, and this is what I've learned, is make my life exactly the way I want.
mm.
And by example, by depositing that into the ethers, that's my contribution.
Oh, I completely agree. It's amazing what that, just focusing on yourself and making yourself the best you can, how that can inspire people around you. It is pretty
You
incredible.
know, they have done tests after tests, science, right? I love science in some
Mm,
ways. And I'm referencing that um you can, let me see. For me, I realized that when I don't want to go into a long story, but I had gotten a breast cancer diagnosis years ago. And I made a decision not to really tell people because I realized if I told people, they're going to worry about me. Do I want people sending worry to me? No. So there's a spiritual like concept where you only share what's most dearest to you if they can hold it in their mouth. And I always tell people that, are they worthy of knowing me? Are they worthy of knowing can they hold me in the highest regard no matter what I'm going through and not judge me and literally just love me? And a lot of people can't do that. They, oh, you have cancer. I'm going to worry about you. And like then all this fear and projection comes onto you.
mm. And it's that energy
So
that you can feel too. Yeah.
exactly. So know that what you deposit into the ethers matters and it counts. And people are very reckless with that. And so what I say is I can only change myself and I will make a promise to calibrate like I tune my guitar every time I play. I tune this instrument before any activity and make sure that that's what I'm offering to the person in front of me, to the people in front of me,
You
to
know,
the world.
isn't this powerful too? I mean, and this makes me think about like how do I react? I'm questioning myself and how I react towards people right now. Let's say, what would you say would be a great reaction to someone who might be sharing something, rather than being like, oh, I worry about you, or what would be a great reaction? Would you say?
I would say I see complete health. In you, I see that you are whole and complete and that you are moving through what you need to move through to get back into that healing, into
That's
that
beautiful.
wholeness. And I said, and there it's always a good idea to ask questions and be curious and lean in a little, like everyone's a little bit different. And you can even ask, like, anytime we don't know how to react to a person who just lost a loved one, or, there's some territory that's, scary terrain for people. Grief, the process of grief. So I would say, listen, I really want to be there for you. Like, I want to make sure that I'm holding the high watch for you. Like, would you let me know if you need a meal or a friend, or let me know the ways in which I can be there for you? We don't have to make it up. We should never, never assume, of course, what someone needs or what they're going through. And we get timid, we get scared. Oh, and talk to someone else. Did you hear so and so has? It's like, no, we're not going to connect over collusion energy. No
Right.
more.
I agree with this. I like this a
Yeah.
lot. Yeah. Because I definitely I believe in that 100%. This is very interesting. Now, something else I'm curious about, because you've been really successful with your work and what you're doing in your practice, and I've seen you thrive through the years and do a lot of different programs. I'm curious, what do you feel has helped you make your business successful? Because it's not an easy thing to do in these different kinds of fields, and do it for yourself.
I think the reason I've been successful and I hope to be continued success is that there's a couple things. Number one is I understand what I can do and what I can't do. And I
Mm,
understand what my field can do and what it can't do. That's important. And I also am my whole lens is long-term relationships. It's not about a sale. It's just not. It's like I'm not trying to sell someone some microdosing or CBD or whatever it is. Like
Mhm.
it's just not. It's not like, yes, if you're in a position where you need to be in my field and get appointments from me, then that's a worthwhile investment. I mean, how much money do you put on transformation, really? But I will say that, on I really speak to the fact that the system is broken, Jolie, because I know people in my field, like, of course, like we need to run a business, we need to make money. So we're going to offer supplements or, come in again, sessions, like, and there have been people that have been hurt by, certain chiropractors that sell big packages and whatnot because they don't understand. I think there's a lack of getting people participating on board to really what's happening, and they've been hurt. And so I always tell people, you're not going to like every acupuncturist, every chiropractor, even, you might not like pastel paintings, but you like ceramics, right? So you have to understand that, you're uniquely you, and if you are connected to yourself internally, then you'll be guided. Is this person trustworthy? Do I want to invest and work with this person? Can they help me? And from my end as a business person, I know that if someone's not moving their body, yeah, they need acupuncture. Maybe they're injured. Maybe they twisted their ankle. So yeah, acupuncture is great. I can move your energy, right? So there's certain things of like, the more I know what I can do and what I can help with, and be honest on what I can't. And as a seasoned practitioner, I am clear. Like if I can't help you, oh my God. So the great thing is I've created a network all around the country, almost all around the world, but not really, of like different people, different modalities, different disciplines that are available, because we are here to serve the person in front of us, their sovereignty,
Mhm.
and it's not about me grasping. Anytime we grasp something, it usually falls through our hands, and what's meant to be yours will be yours, and what's
Mhm.
not meant to be yours will not be yours.
Mhm. That's great advice for people starting out too, because it is that when you start out a new business, or you're, going through a difficult time, you're in that grasping mode, and it seems like everything's so much harder because it's that grasping mode. It just doesn't work. But when you're in that giving mode, which you are in, and you can just hear it in how you speak,
Hmm.
it comes to you. It just
Yeah.
there's a different energy with it for sure.
Well, and know the continuum of fear is wisdom.
Wait, say it again.
Okay. So in Chinese medicine, if you're experiencing, like, I'm afraid I'm not going to make a lot of money, if you're experiencing the emotion of fear, you stay there long enough to deepen your trust and faith in yourself, to listen to that internal wisdom. So there's continuums of energy. So like for the heart, it's bitter and resentment, right? Because sometimes our heart gets hurt, right? But then the continuum of that is joy and happy. So this, the spleen, I'll just give you one more. The spleen is when you're overthinking, cyclical thinking, worrying, going round and round about something. The opposite of that, do you know what it is?
I would say the opposite of that is acceptance.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and there's multiple words for each one, but yeah, so like when someone's starting out, preparation, just like preparing a soup for the week, or preparing, like, preparation goes a long way. And I think that in a business, you have to understand it takes time to build your network, to build your client base. So you have to financially prepare for that, because otherwise you're going to show up with a discovery call trying to sell a package, and it's like the energy.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
Yeah,
not going to work. Yes,
right.
yeah, that's really great advice all around
Yeah.
there. So, I'm curious. You have we've talked about your acupuncture and all the things, but I know you've been dabbling in the microdosing and things of that nature, and the studies there are fascinating. So, I'm curious if there's anything in that realm that you think would be helpful for other people to know, because it is new and it's not something that's talked about as much.
Yeah, of course, of course. And the legislation will happen next January. The law will pass, and then everybody can. I mean, in Santa Cruz you can, in certain states you can. But this is the bottom line. The reason it's so popular, and the government put Last year, they put 4.1 million in the research in microdosing. Yeah, yeah. So everybody's on board, but this is the deal: is fungus is a connector. That's it. It connects you. It's heart medicine. It connects you to your heart. So people are so disconnected, and all addiction stems from disconnection.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Agree.
So I would say to people is, and you have to understand that it's like, it's such a minute dose. You don't, I mean, it's like, it's sub-perceptual,
Yeah, you
right? So,
don't know it. You don't feel it.
no,
Yeah.
no, 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 not at all. But over time, the fungus, like you can just picture it, right? Connecting you to yourself, because your husband could be in front of you with so much love. But if you don't have that for yourself, you won't recognize it. You can't feel it. You can't give anybody else what you don't have yourself. So that those concepts, those fundamental principles that are universal. And so the reason, microdosing and psilocybin and mushrooms are becoming so popular is because we need answers. I mean, people, like we said, people are not connected to the boxed food. People
Oh,
aren't connected. So it's like there's so many things that are taking us away from connection. Okay. And an example that people can probably relate to is that usually what I've seen is when people go to the gym, they're getting rid of their tension and their stress. They're getting it out. But it's not like the music they're listening to or the TV screens or the magazines they're reading on the treadmill. It's not about, let me connect to myself. So this is why we in Chinese medicine we always say, please go for walks outside, right? I've been teaching an outdoor fitness company, class for 20 years, and it's like, can I get people on the land that they live in? And I tell you, Jolie, it's been since 2004 I've been out there, and there's hardly anyone out there.
oh, and
You'll
LeTa,
see
it does
two
make
people.
all the difference in the world. All the difference in the world. It's like it's your simplest life hack that you can have, really. It just go outside and walk in nature. And I can say that for my own self, I've had, a couple of times where, things start spiraling down, right? And I know the tools that you're supposed to bring out, right? But things are still spiraling and I'm not taking the tools out and you don't know why. And you know what I needed? I just needed to go walk in the morning in nature. And that was enough for me to pull my tools out each day and get myself back up. It was just the simple start to the day, walking in some nature, and it set the whole day off in the right direction that it needed to go. It's amazing,
That goes back to practice what you know,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Like if you aren't doing what you already know, you and I can't take you to the next level. So if you're ready to like invest, then, because the thing is that people come to you and I for either information, but information's almost on the internet for free. Is it accountability? Is it motivation? Is it structure? Is it inspiration? Right? So people come for all different reasons. And I tell people, if you don't have the resources right now, start with what you know. But if you do, the time is now. Don't wait, because every moment, as cheesy as it is, it's a gift.
Yes. Oh, 100%. I agree. So, well, now tell me, is there any book or video or talk that you have read, listened to, heard that had really big impact on you that you think other people should watch or listen to as well?
It depends on what the issue is. So for instance, like if someone's struggling with alcohol right now, and what I mean by that is I want to have a beer or glass of wine or something because I think it'll be more fun. Okay, so there's a continuum on people's relationship with alcohol. There's obviously alcoholics, but there's also this medium area. Okay, and so if you're wanting to change something, even if the thought comes in like, hey, I should move my body, or hey, I should, eat less, or, because we all have these thoughts that come
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. I'm thinking about
And
my thoughts that I have. Go on.
do we want them to get louder? It's like, are we really calling in a physical issue like fainting or, a car accident, whatever it is? Are we really calling in something that's going to flatten us? Like when you have the flu, you're not doing much. It doesn't matter how much love and money you have, right? So it's like that I always want to say like, oh, okay, that's where I need to start. Okay. So if it's that, then what is it going to take for you to change? So this patient I had yesterday, the homework, because they're dealing with alcohol. I said, okay, do you want to, is it helpful to listen to podcasts? Like, do you want to know the science? Like, do you want to look at all the research in PubMed around what it does to your liver? Like, what do we
What
need to
is
get,
that? Yeah.
get the information in there so you can start make so that maybe that's fear or maybe that's inspiring to you, because when you find a personal trainer, they can either be tough or loving,
Yeah,
right?
what
Some
works
people
better?
like to be yelled
Yeah,
at, right? Some people are like, I don't want to be yelled at.
right.
So
You need to
you
know.
have to, there's not like a one book or one podcast. I would say that it depends on, think about the thing that you want to change and change your relationship to. Because you're always going to have a relationship with alcohol, whether you drink it or not. It's about changing. It's not about the alcohol, right? It's not about that TV is bad. It's your relationship to it. Okay. And if you're wanting to change and fine tune and up level a certain relationship, then you have to ask yourself, do I need different information? Right? Do I need accountability? Do I need structure? I always say, listen, get a friend, right? I mean, ideally, I know the proof is in the pudding that when you invest in a mentor, then change happens. But for those that are like, whatever it is, get a tag team. Go to a Pilates class, but do it with a friend. Like, again, it's going back to, where are you getting stuck? Why are you not changing? And look at, what do you need to implement and put in place for that change to happen.
I love it.
Like, put your
Mhm.
supplements right next to your toothbrush.
Yes, yes,
Habit stack. Like, there's so many different ways.
yes. There are
But
so many different ways.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But I will say that there's a phrase in Taoism that says, when Shen is the ruler, everything can take its rightful place. And
When
Shen is your
Shen
spirit. So when you are connected to yourself, your spirit, your soul,
Mhm,
only then everything else can take its rightful place.
mhm, right.
Because it's like leading with the heart,
Mhm.
right?
And I've
You
heard this
know,
message multiple, like throughout our talk. You've brought this up in multiple different ways, and it just seems to keep it comes back to you knowing yourself, you knowing what works for you knowing what relationship or things that you want to change, and then going out and figuring out what works for you and in the different ways. I mean, whether it's a podcast or a coach or a friend, and whether that's soft or harder. Or, I mean, there's all these different ways, but you just need to know yourself and get in touch with yourself and go in.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Yeah, the best way to hammer it in is if you're tired.
mhm.
Okay. If you're tired, there's a lot of things you can do. You can take a nap, you can go for a walk, you can drink green tea, you can drink coffee, right? Like, you can do shaking, or like, get your body, there's a lot. But taking a nap, drinking coffee, and going for a walk are completely different things. But they'll all give you energy,
Mhm.
right? Ultimately.
Yep.
So this discernment comes in when you start to cultivate this deeper relationship with yourself. Then you can know in the moment, you know what? I need a cup of coffee. I'm gonna sit down and write something. Or, you know what? I need to go outside. Like, I need some fresh air. I just need a shift of perspective, right? Or, you know what? I need to lay down. I need to quiet my eyes. I don't need any more incoming, which is very different.
And it's so
But
powerful to know what you want
yes,
and be in touch with that.
yes.
And not enough people are doing that. So thank you for this reminder for everybody.
Mm.
Now, if people are interested in working with you, how do they get in touch with you? And are you taking on new clients? How does that look for you?
Yeah. So right now I am, so I have a new clinic in Santa Cruz, but most of my work is online through Zoom.
Great.
I know.
Makes
It's
it
just, yeah. I
opens it
actually
up.
started that before COVID.
Oh, perfect. So then you
I,
weren't as impacted as badly,
well,
hopefully.
yeah,
Well, we
yeah.
were all were, let's be real. But
But yeah. So the best way is to, again, most people will get an initial drop in with me. Like, I had a new patient this morning. We sat on Zoom and we just dropped in, and I wanted to know her story, because when I know someone's story, it tells me a lot. You flash colors. There's a certain tone of your voice that tells me the emotional state, which organs are affected. In Chinese medicine, Jolie, I can make the necessary connections that no other paradigm has. And it's so beautiful because most people are only going to call me when they have like stiff neck or high blood pressure or a diagnosis or, oh, I can't, my loose stools or, but it's just insight into the path of least resistance to where we need to put more attention. Right. So it's really cool to be working people with this level because those symptoms can change. My gosh, we don't have to live with that, but we don't realize, and I think you know this, you can be here. You can live here.
Yeah, you can live
You
here
know,
as well.
you can just live a higher state. So I would suggest people just checking out, my website. Doctor is spelled out, Dr. LeTa, LETA, and if they're inspired and moved, I'm absolutely taking on new people. I'm still in private practice. I don't know if I will be forever. I've been asked to teach some courses. So I'm probably going to move into course creation to get these fundamental principles out to more people. But for now, personalized medicine. I'm still doing that.
And they can be a part of your newsletter at the very least, because right? Because I believe
Yeah.
you always have different programs that come out occasionally as well that people might be interested in too.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
that's
Thank
worth
you.
signing up. Perfect. So before you go, my last question:
Yes.
what are you sure of in life?
Change.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing I'm really sure about is that everything changes.
Yeah, that's the only thing I'm sure of too. It's the only thing I've been able to come up with that I'm sure of.
You too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hilarious. I love it. We have the same one.
Yeah. So, Lita, thank you so much for joining us. This has been wonderful and insightful. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, friends, for joining us. If you enjoyed the show, there are many more episodes and messages just like this that can be found on the Fresh Blood Killing It After 40 podcast, as well as the subsequent YouTube channel or at the joliedowns.com website. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful and fulfilling day.